Before the sun rises, the Central Plains is already breaking. For more than 6 centuries, one dynasty has ruled by blood, bronze, and fear. Its kings call themselves the Sons of Heaven. Their authority is said to be eternal, unquestionable, unchallenged. But power, held too long, begins to rot. Palaces grow louder, punishments grow crueler. The distance between ruler and ruled becomes a wound that will not close. Across the land, the signs multiply. Harvests fail, rebellions ignite, then disappear. The people whisper what they dare not say aloud, that heaven is watching, and that it is no longer pleased. Now, in the year 1046 before the Common Era, those whispers fall silent. On a cold plain called Muye, 2 armies face one another beneath a sky that offers no mercy and no answers. One army stands vast, armored and confident in a power it has never had to justify. The other advances with fewer numbers, but with belief hardening every step. This is not a war for land. It is not a war for gold or tribute. It is a reckoning, because belief is the most dangerous force ever unleashed on a battlefield. When soldiers stop believing in their king, numbers lose meaning. When obedience cracks, empires collapse. By nightfall, a throne will stand empty, a dynasty will pass into legend, and a new law of power will be written in blood and silence. This is the Battle of Muye. For generations beyond counting, the world of the Central Plains has moved to the rhythm set by the Shang dynasty. Its authority feels ancient, immovable, as if it has always existed and always will. Bronze weapons gleam in ritual fires. Ancestral spirits are consulted through cracked bones and drifting smoke. The Shang do not merely rule this land, they define it. Their kings claim a sacred lineage, a bloodline chosen to stand between heaven and the living world. To obey the Shang is to obey the order of the cosmos itself. At the center of this world stands the king. He is not just a ruler of men, but a necessary pillar of existence. Harvests succeed or fail through him. Victories and disasters alike are interpreted as reflections of his relationship with the unseen forces above. In life and death, the king's will shapes the fate of all beneath him. To question that authority is not rebellion, it is heresy. But centuries of unquestioned power leave scars that even bronze cannot hide. In the final years of Shang rule, something has begun to shift. The rituals continue, the drums still sound, the banners still rise, yet beneath the surface, fear replaces reverence. Orders are obeyed not out of loyalty, but terror. Punishments grow public, elaborate, and merciless. Execution becomes spectacle. Suffering becomes entertainment for the court. The distance between ruler and ruled widens until it feels unbridgeable. The throne is now held by King Zhou of Shang, a man remembered not for doubt, but for excess. His court overflows with wealth extracted from endless labor. His palaces grow larger as villages shrink. Where previous kings sought omens before acting, he demands obedience first and justification later. To him, power is proof enough of divine favor. Heaven, he insists, still speaks through his voice alone. Yet heaven no longer answers as it once did. Across the land, the signs begin to accumulate. Floods ruin fields, harvests falter. The rhythms of nature feel unstable, unreliable. These events are explained away by the court, dismissed as coincidence or blamed on insufficient devotion among the people. But among farmers whose backs are bent beneath forced labor and soldiers dragged from their homes to serve distant masters, a quieter interpretation takes root. They whisper that the king has lost his virtue, that the bond between ruler and heaven has weakened, that something is wrong at the center of the world. Fear silences those whispers, but it cannot erase them. The Shang state depends on labor drawn from every corner of its domain. Men are conscripted to build, to mine, to march. Some are prisoners, others are conquered peoples bound by obligation and threat. Their loyalty is assumed, enforced by punishment rather than earned by trust. They fight not because they believe in the king, but because refusal is unthinkable. The machinery of the dynasty grinds forward, powerful and relentless, yet increasingly hollow. Within the elite, cracks begin to form as well. Nobles who once advised restraint now remain silent. Priests continue their rituals, but their readings grow ambiguous, their proclamations cautious. No one dares confront the king directly. Power has become too concentrated, too absolute. To speak truth is to invite death, and so decay spreads quietly, unnoticed by those who benefit most from the illusion of stability. The Shang still command vast armies. Their arsenals are full, their banners are feared. By every visible measure they are invincible. But invincibility built on fear carries a hidden weakness. It demands constant pressure, constant obedience, constant suppression of doubt. And doubt, once introduced, is impossible to fully destroy. In the Western lands, beyond the heart of Shang authority, stories circulate. Tales of just rule, of leaders who listen, of a different relationship between heaven and those who govern. These stories move slowly, carried by traders, travelers, and men who have seen too much to continue believing in the old promises. They do not yet speak of rebellion. They speak only of possibility. The Shang court dismisses these rumors as irrelevant, minor disturbances at the edge of a vast and eternal order. After all, the dynasty has endured for centuries. Kings have come and gone, but the system remains. What could possibly threaten something so deeply rooted in time? Beyond the reach of Shang palaces and ritual fires, another world is taking shape. It does not announce itself with grandeur, it grows quietly, patiently. In lands the Shang consider peripheral, useful, subordinate, expendable. This is the world of the Zhou dynasty, a people who have lived long in the shadow of a greater power and learned from everything they have observed. The Zhou are not new to the Shang world. They have served it, fought for it, and paid tribute to it. They know its strengths intimately, and, more importantly, they have come to understand its weaknesses. Where the Shang rely on fear, the Zhou cultivate loyalty. Where the Shang demand obedience, the Zhou emphasize obligation bound by mutual responsibility. Their leaders speak less of divine bloodlines and more of moral conduct. In a world accustomed to inherited authority, this way of thinking is quietly revolutionary. At the heart of the Zhou stands a family shaped by patience and restraint. Generations earlier, Zhou leaders learned the cost of confronting Shang power too openly. They watched, they waited, they gathered allies not through conquest, but through reputation. Over time, surrounding clans come to see the Zhou not as masters, but as protectors, rulers who listen, arbiters who restrain excess rather than indulge it. Leadership among the Zhou is not theatrical. It is deliberate. Decisions are argued, weighed, tested. Authority is still centralized, but it carries expectations. A leader must rule well to deserve loyalty. This idea alone sets the Zhou apart in a world where power is assumed to justify itself. Now, that leadership rests with King Wu of Zhou. He is not a tyrant, nor a mystic figure wrapped in legend. He is a commander shaped by responsibility and burdened by consequence. He understands what open rebellion against the Shang truly means. It is not merely war, it is an assault on the cosmic order the Shang claim to embody. If he fails, his people will be annihilated. If he succeeds, the world itself must be redefined. King Wu does not rush toward that choice. He prepares. The Zhou strengthen alliances across the Western lands, binding clans through marriage, treaties, and shared grievance. Many of these allies have suffered under Shang demands, forced labor, conscription, tribute extracted without mercy. They do not yet dare to imagine the fall of the Shang, but they are ready to support anyone who challenges its cruelty with purpose rather than chaos. At Zhou courts, discussions grow increasingly bold. The question is no longer whether the Shang rule justly, but whether they rule legitimately at all. The Zhou begin to articulate an idea that has no name yet, but immense power. That heaven's favor is not permanent, that it responds to virtue, that a ruler who governs through terror forfeits the right to command. This belief spreads cautiously. The Zhou do not proclaim it openly. They allow it to circulate as implication rather than declaration. Stories are shared, comparisons are drawn. The Shang king's excesses become examples, not accusations. In this way, the idea moves faster than armies ever could. Crucially, the Zhou do not present themselves as conquerors. They present themselves as correctors of imbalance. They frame conflict not as ambition, but as necessity. Not as rebellion, but as restoration. This distinction matters. It allows hesitant allies to support them without seeing themselves as traitors to the old order. They are not destroying the world, they are repairing it. Meanwhile, news from the Shang heartland confirms what the Zhou already suspect. The Shang king grows more isolated. Advisors disappear. Punishments escalate. Conscription intensifies. The dynasty is preparing for threats it barely understands. It tightens its grip, unaware that pressure is accelerating collapse rather than preventing it. Among soldiers pressed into Shang service, rumors spread. Some have heard of the Zhou, of leaders who fight beside their men, of commanders who reward loyalty rather than extract it. These stories do not inspire open defiance, not yet, but they erode certainty. They introduce comparison, and comparison is dangerous to absolute power. King Wu understands that the decisive struggle will not be won by numbers alone. The Shang can field larger forces, they possess deeper reserves, but they lack something increasingly vital: belief. The Zhou march not as a mass of coerced bodies, but as a coalition bound by shared conviction. Every step westward strengthens that bond. As preparations accelerate, Zhou leaders consult not only generals but scholars and elders. They seek signs, not of approval, but of responsibility. If heaven truly withdraws its favor from the Shang, then taking action is no longer a choice. It is a duty. Failure to act would be complicity in injustice. The moment approaches quietly. There is no declaration heard across the land, no single spark, only a gradual convergence of will, grievance, and conviction. The Zhou do not yet know how history will remember them. They know only that the existing order can no longer stand unchallenged. When the Zhou finally begin their march east, they do so with measured certainty. They are not racing toward conquest. They are moving toward judgment, toward a confrontation that will decide not just who rules, but why anyone ever should. The storm is no longer distant. It is forming. For centuries, the Shang have claimed that heaven speaks through them alone. Their kings read its will in fire and bone, interpreting cracks and smoke as confirmation of their right to rule. Victory is proof of favor. Prosperity is validation. Even disaster, they insist, is merely a test of loyalty. In this world, heaven never withdraws its blessing. It only demands obedience. The Zhou see something different. They do not deny heaven's existence. They do not reject its authority. What they challenge is far more dangerous. They question permanence. They suggest that heaven is not bound to a single family, a single bloodline, or a single throne. They begin to speak of virtue as currency, of justice as requirement, of power as a responsibility that must be earned again and again. This idea has no formal name yet, but its implications are unmistakable. If heaven's favor is conditional, then failure is not random. It is judgment. The Zhou point to the evidence accumulating across the land: the cruelty of the Shang court, the suffering of the people, the growing distance between ruler and ruled. They do not shout these accusations. They let them speak for themselves. Every execution, every forced labor march, every silenced advisor becomes another argument heaven does not need words to make. Slowly, the interpretation spreads. When harvests fail, it is not bad luck. When floods rise, it is not coincidence. These are signs, not of heaven's anger at the people, but at the king, who has forgotten restraint. What once would have been dismissed as superstition now feels like pattern. The most radical implication follows naturally. If heaven can withdraw its favor, then removing an unworthy ruler is not rebellion. It is restoration. It is not treason. It is duty. This belief changes everything. Among Zhou leaders, the question is no longer whether the Shang king deserves to rule. It is whether allowing him to continue ruling is itself a violation of heaven's will. In this framing, inaction becomes guilt, silence becomes complicity. The moral burden shifts entirely. This is how the Zhou prepare their people for war, not with promises of plunder, but with justification. Not with hatred, but with inevitability. They do not ask their followers to destroy the Shang world. They ask them to correct it. Word travels beyond Zhou territory. Allied clans hear the argument and recognize their own suffering in it. Soldiers conscripted by Shang officers repeat it in whispers. Farmers forced into labor begin to believe their misery has meaning beyond endurance. The idea does not inspire chaos. It inspires resolve. Crucially, it also undermines the Shang army from within. Many of those who will soon be ordered to defend the Shang throne have no loyalty to it. They fight because they must. Because refusal means death. But fear cannot compete with belief forever. When soldiers begin to wonder whether heaven truly stands behind their king, obedience weakens. Doubt spreads faster than discipline ever could. The Shang court senses unrest, but misreads its nature. It sees disobedience where there is disillusionment. It responds with harsher punishments, deeper conscription, louder proclamations of divine favor. The king insists that heaven remains loyal, that victory is inevitable, that any sign to the contrary is treachery. Yet the more the court insists, the less convincing it sounds. In Zhou councils, preparations accelerate. The decision is no longer abstract. If heaven's mandate is passed, then the moment must be seized before it fades. Delay risks doubt. Hesitation risks fracture. The moral argument must be matched by action. For King Wu of Zhou, this is the heaviest burden of all. To claim heaven's mandate is to invite judgment not only from enemies, but from history itself. If he is wrong, he will not be remembered as a reformer, but as a usurper who shattered the world. There is no partial victory in such a gamble, only legitimacy or annihilation. And yet, the signs continue to point in one direction. Allies commit their forces. Rituals are performed, not to demand victory, but to ask permission. The Zhou do not claim certainty, they claim responsibility. They march not as conquerors assured of success, but as men convinced that refusing to act would be the greater crime. By now, the argument has taken root across the land. It no longer belongs to the Zhou alone. It lives in the minds of soldiers who will soon stand in opposing ranks. It lives in the silence of Shang officers who sense that command no longer guarantees loyalty. It lives in the uneasy calm before confrontation. The mandate of heaven has not been announced, it has been understood. When the armies finally move toward Muye, they carry more than weapons and banners. They carry a verdict already forming, one that no wall can stop, one that no decree can undo. The battle to come will not decide whether heaven has chosen a new ruler. It will reveal that the choice has already been made. The movement toward Muye begins without ceremony. No declaration echoes across the land. No challenge is sent to the Shang court. Armies do not rush forward in triumph or fury. They advance with restraint, as if aware that every step carries the weight of consequence. Winter lingers in the air. The ground is hard. The sky offers no sign of favor or warning. The Zhou forces move east in disciplined silence. They are not the largest army the world has seen, but they are unified by purpose. Each contingent knows why it marches, not for conquest, not for reward, but because turning back now would mean accepting a world ruled by fear forever. The pace is measured, supplies are guarded carefully. Orders are given with clarity rather than threat. This is not the movement of desperation, it is the movement of resolve. Among the ranks, the belief forged over years now settles into something firmer. Soldiers speak quietly of justice, of balance restored, of a ruler who has lost his right to command. They do not celebrate the coming battle. They do not crave it. They accept it. The idea that heaven's favor has shifted gives them a strange calm. Victory is not guaranteed, but meaning is. At the center of the march, King Wu of Zhou rides with the burden of inevitability pressing down on him. Every mile closes the distance between philosophy and bloodshed. He knows that once the Zhou army reaches Muye, there will be no retreat without consequence. The mandate they believe in must now be tested in the only way history recognizes, through force. News of the advance reaches the Shang court quickly. Messengers arrive breathless, speaking of banners on the horizon and allied clans rising alongside them. The response is immediate and absolute. Orders are issued to mobilize the full strength of the Shang realm. Armories are opened. Drums sound. Decrees proclaim unwavering confidence in heaven's loyalty. The Shang army gathers in numbers that dwarf the Zhou force. Bronze weapons fill the fields. Chariots are prepared. Commanders speak with the authority of a dynasty that has never known defeat at the hands of a rival equal in ambition. On the surface, the outcome appears certain. Yet beneath that certainty, something is wrong. Many of those drawn into Shang ranks do not arrive willingly. They are conscripts, prisoners. Men pulled from fields and workshops and marched forward under threat. Some have fought before. Others have never held a weapon. They are told they fight for heaven, for the king, for the survival of the world they know. But fewer believe it with conviction. Rumors move through the Shang camp faster than orders. Stories of Zhou leadership, of fair treatment, of an army that marches by belief rather than fear. These stories do not spark rebellion, but they create hesitation, and hesitation on a battlefield is fatal. Shang officers sense the unease and respond as they always have, with discipline enforced by punishment, with speeches that invoke divine right, with threats disguised as reassurance. The king's name is repeated constantly, as if repetition alone can restore faith. But loyalty demanded is not loyalty earned. As both armies draw closer to Muye, the land itself seems to hold its breath. Villages along the route fall silent. Fields are abandoned. The people wait, knowing that whatever emerges from the coming clash will define their lives for generations. They do not know the name of the idea being tested. They know only that the old order feels fragile, and the new one uncertain. On the eve of battle, fires burn low in both camps. Among the Zhou, there is quiet focus. Weapons are checked. Words are few. The knowledge that they fight not just soldiers, but history itself, presses heavily. Among the Shang, the noise is louder. Commands are shouted. Discipline is enforced. Confidence is proclaimed. Too loudly. Muye lies ahead. An unremarkable plain soon to be etched into memory. Neither army knows exactly how the battle will unfold, but both understand what it represents. For the Shang, it is the defense of an eternal order. For the Zhou, it is the moment belief confronts power. By the time dawn approaches, the distance between the armies has vanished. What remains is the space between fear and conviction, between obedience and loyalty, between a world that has ruled too long and one that is about to be born. The march is over. The reckoning waits. Dawn arrives without drama. No thunder, no omen. Just a pale light spreading slowly across the plain of Muye, revealing two armies already awake, already waiting. The air is cold, heavy with breath and tension. This is not the beginning of chaos. It is the final moment of stillness before a world breaks. The Shang army stands first in the light. Its numbers stretch across the field in dense formation, ranks upon ranks of men, bronze weapons catching the early sun. On paper, the outcome should already be decided. This is the force of a dynasty that has ruled for centuries, backed by tradition, ritual, and the unquestioned assumption of victory. The Shang have never imagined a world in which they do not prevail, yet imagination is exactly what is failing them now. Many in the Shang ranks do not know why they are here. They know only that refusal meant punishment, that hesitation meant death. They grip their weapons tightly, not with confidence, but with fear. Officers move through the lines, issuing commands, invoking the king, invoking heaven, invoking the past. The words feel rehearsed, hollow, repeated too often to inspire belief. Across the field, the Zhou army advances into view. They are fewer, their lines are thinner, their armor less ornate. But they move with discipline that does not require shouting. Their formation holds not because it must, but because it chooses to. Among them march warriors from allied clans, men who have committed themselves not to a dynasty, but to an idea that has carried them here. At their center rides King Wu of Zhou. He does not raise his voice, he does not promise glory, he does not speak of conquest. His presence alone is enough. This battle is not about him as an individual. It is about what he represents, the claim that heaven's favor can move, and that power must answer to virtue. As the distance closes, the imbalance becomes unmistakable. The Shang commanders see it. The Zhou generals see it. Both understand that something unprecedented is about to occur. This is not merely an engagement of forces, it is a test of legitimacy. The first commands are given. Drums sound, banners lift, and then hesitation. Not from the Zhou, but from the Shang. In the Shang front lines, soldiers glance sideways. Some recognize allies among the Zhou ranks. Others remember stories whispered in camps and villages. They see not monsters, not rebels, but men like themselves. Men who have chosen to be here. The realization spreads with terrifying speed. Belief is uneven. The Shang advance begins unevenly. Some units move forward as ordered. Others lag behind. Officers shout. Whips crack. Discipline is enforced in the only way the Shang know how. But force cannot manufacture conviction, it can only expose its absence. The Zhou press forward steadily. They do not rush. They do not break formation. Their movement is controlled, deliberate, relentless. Every step reinforces the contrast between the two armies. One advances because it must, the other advances because it believes it should. When the lines finally meet, the clash is violent but brief. Bronze strikes bronze, shields splinter, men fall. But the expected surge of Shang dominance never materializes. Instead, the battlefield fractures. In several Shang units, weapons lower. In others, they turn, not toward the enemy, but toward their own officers. Some soldiers drop their arms entirely. Others step aside as Zhou forces pass through gaps that should not exist. What was meant to be an overwhelming defense begins to dissolve from within. Command collapses faster than formation. Shang officers scream orders that go unanswered. The chain of authority snaps under the weight of disbelief. The idea that heaven no longer favors their king, once unthinkable, now feels undeniable. No number of soldiers can compensate for an army that no longer knows why it fights. The Zhou recognize the moment and press it without mercy. This is not slaughter, it is disintegration. The Shang force does not break in a single catastrophic rout. It unravels, unit by unit, decision by decision, loyalty by loyalty. What remains is confusion, fear, and retreat. At the rear, word reaches the Shang king. King Zhou of Shang hears that his armies are faltering, that soldiers are refusing commands, that some have defected. He cannot comprehend it. To him, the idea that heaven's chosen ruler could be abandoned in this way is impossible. He orders reinforcements. He orders punishment. He orders loyalty. But loyalty no longer answers. By mid-morning, the outcome is no longer in doubt. Zhou forces control the field. Shang resistance collapses entirely. Survivors flee toward the capital, carrying not just news of defeat, but proof that the world they believed eternal has failed them. Muye falls silent. The battlefield is littered not with the signs of heroic struggle, but with the remnants of an idea that has lost its power. Banners lie in the mud. Weapons are abandoned. The earth bears witness to a victory that feels less like conquest and more like confirmation. For the Zhou, there is no celebration. There is only recognition. They have crossed a threshold from which there is no return. The mandate they claimed has now been tested and revealed before all. Heaven did not intervene to stop them. The Shang did not hold. The verdict, in the only language history understands, has been delivered. For the Shang, the truth is devastating. Their dynasty has not been defeated by superior force. It has been undone by its own decay, by years of cruelty mistaken for strength, by fear mistaken for loyalty, by authority mistaken for virtue. Muye is not remembered for tactical brilliance or heroic last stands. It is remembered because it exposes a fundamental reality of power, that rule sustained without belief collapses the moment belief is offered an alternative. By the time the sun reaches its height, the battle is over. What remains is consequence. The road to the Shang capital lies open. The old order retreats in disbelief. The new one advances with the burden of legitimacy now resting fully upon it. The world has not yet changed its name, but it will never be the same again. News of Muye reaches the Shang capital before the survivors do. Messengers arrive with broken voices and shattered certainty, speaking of an army that dissolved instead of fighting, of commanders abandoned by their own men, of banners falling without resistance. At first, the reports are dismissed as exaggeration, panic, cowardice, lies told by those seeking to excuse failure. But the reports do not stop. They multiply. What happened at Muye cannot be hidden, because it is not just a defeat, it is a collapse of belief. And belief, once broken, leaves traces everywhere. Within the walls of the capital, unease spreads. Officials avoid one another's eyes. Priests repeat rituals with rigid precision, as if accuracy alone might restore divine favor. The city still stands, its palaces intact, its gates unbroken, yet something essential has already been lost. The certainty that the Shang world is protected, the assumption that heaven will intervene. At the center of this unraveling stands King Zhou of Shang. He refuses to accept the meaning of Muye. To him, defeat is temporary, reversible, impossible to interpret as judgment. He has ruled without challenge for too long to imagine that legitimacy itself can vanish. He orders defenses strengthened. He demands loyalty reaffirmed. He clings to ceremony, to proclamation, to the symbols of authority that once required no explanation. But symbols cannot command belief once belief has withdrawn. Those closest to the throne sense it first. Advisors hesitate before speaking or choose silence entirely. Guards obey orders, but without conviction. The machinery of power still moves, but its rhythm is unsteady. The king is no longer a bridge between heaven and the world. He is a man isolated within walls that suddenly feel fragile. As Zhou forces advance toward the capital, resistance is scattered and disorganized. Cities open their gates rather than endure punishment for a cause they no longer believe in. Garrisons melt away. The empire that once seemed eternal offers no unified defense, because unity itself has evaporated. Inside the palace, reality finally presses in. The king is surrounded by everything that once defined Shang greatness: bronze, silk, firelight, ritual vessels meant to speak with the ancestors. Yet none of it answers him now. Heaven does not respond. The spirits remain silent. The world he commanded no longer recognizes his authority. There is no dramatic last stand. no rally that turns the tide. The fall of the Shang king is not a moment of defiance, but of isolation. Faced with the certainty that his rule has ended, he retreats into the only power he still controls: his own fate. Fire consumes the palace that symbolized excess and absolute authority. Wealth, ceremony, and memory burn together, collapsing centuries of rule into ash and smoke. With the death of the king, the Shang dynasty ends not with resistance, but with finality. There is no ambiguity left to interpret, no rival claimant, no lingering question of legitimacy. The line that once claimed heaven's eternal favor has extinguished itself, unable to survive in a world that no longer believes. Outside the capital, Zhou forces do not celebrate the fall of a man. They acknowledge the end of an era. What has happened cannot be undone. The old order has not merely been defeated, it has concluded. The silence that follows is heavy. It is the silence of a world between meanings, a world no longer governed by inherited certainty, but not yet reshaped by what comes next. The Shang are gone. Their rituals, their authority, their claim to heaven have ended in fire. What remains is responsibility, because with the fall of the king, the burden of rule passes fully to those who claimed heaven's mandate. The Zhou have proven that power can be taken. Now they must prove it can be deserved. The dynasty has ended. The consequences are just beginning. The fires die down. The smoke thins. What remains after Muye is not triumph, but uncertainty. A dynasty has fallen, yet the world does not pause to explain what comes next. There are no instructions written into the earth, no voice from heaven offering guidance. Only a silence heavy with expectation. The Zhou step into that silence carefully. They understand what they have done and what they have claimed. By defeating the Shang, they have not only taken power, they have rewritten the logic of rule itself. Authority is no longer eternal. Legitimacy is no longer inherited without question. Power must now answer to something beyond blood and fear. This is the true aftermath of Muye. The Zhou consolidate control not through terror, but through reassurance. Cities are spared, customs are preserved, rituals continue, but their meaning subtly changes. Heaven is no longer treated as a possession of the throne, but as a judge standing above it. The idea first whispered before the battle now becomes doctrine, that a ruler governs only so long as he governs well. From this moment forward, every king will rule with a shadow over his crown. Natural disasters will no longer be random misfortune. Rebellion will no longer be mindless chaos. Each will be interpreted as a signal, evidence that heaven is watching, measuring, judging. The mandate does not promise peace. It promises accountability. The Zhou know this, and they accept it. Their victory at Muye gives them power, but it also binds them to a standard they cannot escape. Should they rule as the Shang did, they too will fall, not as victims of chance, but of judgment. The lesson of Muye is clear, and it is unforgiving. Across the land, people begin to understand what has changed, even if they lack the words to name it. They know only that kings can fall, that suffering can be answered, that the world is not frozen in place by divine decree. Hope does not come from certainty, it comes from the possibility of correction. History will remember the Zhou dynasty as conquerors. Philosophers will remember them as something more dangerous, innovators of legitimacy. What they leave behind is not just a new ruling house, but a framework that will shape centuries of rise and collapse, unity and division. Dynasties will follow. Each will claim heaven's favor. Each will cite virtue. Each will watch the signs closely, fearing the moment heaven might turn away again. None will ever rule without remembering Muye. Because Muye proves something irreversible. That power without virtue is temporary. That fear cannot replace belief. That even the strongest dynasty stands only by consent, whether spoken or silent. No one standing on that plane understands the future their actions have set in motion. They do not know the names history will give this land. They do not imagine the civilizations that will rise, fracture, and reunite under the shadow of this idea. But from this moment forward, the path is fixed. What rises from the ashes of Muye is not yet called China. But from this moment on, it will never be anything else.